So Gavin asked a great question about fungi. He asked if fungi are plants. If not, what they are, how they work, and what they do. So Gavin, fungi aren't plants. In the kingdom of large organisms, there are animals and they form a kingdom. There's plants and they form a kingdom. And then there's actually a kingdom called kingdom fungi. And that's the kingdom to which mushrooms and molds and athlete's foot, all sorts of different organisms belong that we would place in this kingdom called fungi. To help you understand a little bit of the differences, plants make their own food. So plants photosynthesize and they use the sunlight to be able to make the food that they need to eat. Instead, you can't do that. You have to eat your food. And fungi are much the same way. Fungi have to acquire their food from some outside source, but they don't have a mouth like animals do. Instead, fungi grow as little threads that move through the ground. And those threads can be microscopic and hard to see, but they're still working and they're doing their job. It's a little bit like this little mass of cotton here. Now this is just cotton, but you can see this mass of cotton, but if I tried to pull off just a single little strand of cotton, it'd be really hard to see. And that's much the same way a fungal body is. They're little strands, little filaments, they're hard to see. We call those hyphae. And when hyphae get together in a mass, then just like this, we can see them, and we call that mycelium. And this mass of mycelium is growing through the soil or growing through a log that's rotting or growing through your toes, and it's eating. But without a mouth, it actually puts its digestive juices outside of its body, and then it absorbs the smaller particles that get broken down back into its body. So it'd be kind of like throwing up in your cereal bowl and then eating your cereal, but maybe not quite so gross. So this mycelia, as it grows through the ground, is going to keep growing and digesting the organic matter that's there and breaking things down. And eventually it's going to become time for reproduction. And when that happens, that's when we get something that's kind of like this model. And we get a large, what we see as a mushroom growing up out of the ground. And it starts off as a little button, and then more moisture comes through, and these can grow really, really fast, really, really rapidly. Usually they appear overnight, especially after rainstorms when there's a lot of water in the ground, and they start growing up and the cap starts to become distinct, and then the cap opens up all of the way, and underneath the cap, you can see the gills, and the gills, inside the gills where spores are formed, and those spores are like little lightweight dust particles, and they'll blow away in the wind and they'll land on the ground or on another rotting log or anywhere where there's organic matter that they can eat, and they'll start to grow and grow new hyphal threads that digest externally by pumping their digestive juices outside of their body. One more difference between plants and mushrooms is that the cells that make up a mushroom, the individual cells that make up this mushroom, are made out of chitin. Chitin is the same chemical that insects use to make their exoskeletons. The hard shell on a beetle is made out of chitin. Plants don't make their cell walls out of chitin. They use cellulose. And that's a little chemical difference, a structural difference, but it's one more thing besides the inability to make their own food that make fungi a completely different group from plants. Kind of interestingly, fungi are actually much more closely related to animals than they are to plants in terms of the phylogenetic tree and the similarities that they have. That's it for today, Gavin. Great question.